Hey everybody, I'm your host Rob Barnard, and welcome to Perfect Game Central. A little bit back, we opened some 2002 Tops update, and I promised that we would take a look at this set. Um, we will do breaks and other things. We're not just going to do breaks, so this will be one of our primary things we like. I like to do. I wanted to do, which take a look at factory sets from different publishers, different years. Talk a little bit of baseball. Talk a little bit about the set, and share my personal collection uh, with you all. So this is a set 1997 Score collector set. Now I looked and looked and looked. This is the closest thing that they had to a factory set for Score. And I've looked and looked and looked. They don't have 98. Um, I haven't found 96, 95. And everybody knows that you can find factory sets of 90, 91. Earlier years, late 80s, early 90s. But this is the closest thing that they released to a factory set at this time. And I just want to share why this set means so much to me. It has a lot of memories to it. One, it's the height of my baseball fandom, 97. The Braves had won the World Series just 2 years prior. So we're right during, in the middle of the run, epic run that the Braves would go on during the 90s and into the 2000s, where they won the division so many years in a row. Only winning one World Series, unfortunately, but Braves were my team of the 90s, even though I'm born in Pittsburgh. And I started rooting for the Pirates when I was younger. But once the early 90s teams broke up, um, I remember them losing back to back NLCSs to the Braves, 91 and 92, I believe. And so I went and started cheering for the Braves, and they went on an epic run wherever they are. Um, just a phenomenal team. So, no, I did not necessarily pick the Braves just because they were one of the best teams of the decade. I actually didn't know that at the time when I first started rooting for them in 92. After the 92 NLCS, I had no idea that that's what they were going to become. But to this day, the Braves are my team. But this team probably means the most to me. Um, this particular set has some personal sentimental value for me. I was in junior high, awkward time for anybody. I remember I wasn't doing so well in a class, and the teacher offered as a motivation to buy me cards, which he knew I was into baseball. He knew I liked baseball cards. And when he suggested that, he saw my face light up, so he knew he was on the right track. Um, and then they promised to I can't remember if it was a he or she. They promised to get me cards. So I studied, I hit the books hard, and I got the grades that they wanted me to get. And they bought me a hobby box of this set of 1997 Score hobby box, which I had never seen one before. Little did I know that person probably spent $60 on me. Probably not copacetic looking back on it, but it was one of my good memories as a kid. I didn't have the easiest childhood, and it meant a lot to me. And I think they were kind of surprised. They got an extra little bonus. They got me that besides like motivating me to be a better student, and I did get better grades after that. They were fascinated. I kind of was an unruly student, kind of would talk and kind of a class clown, and I just zoned in and started organizing the cards and just sat there for days. You know, anytime we weren't doing anything in class, I would just sort and just disappear into my own little world. And I think they kind of like, oh, cool, I get some quiet time too. But anyways, I fell in love with the set. I think it's a cool set. It's very outside of my norm. My dad would always buy me Topps factory sets, which is why you see the factory sets in the background. When I was a kid, most of the sets that I came across to a certain point were bought by my dad. Because he raised me on baseball. I loved baseball. He loved baseball. He'd buy me a set every year. Except for a few years, about 94 through about 96, he bought me Upper Deck collector sets, factory sets, but then went back to Topps right up until like I started to get old enough, and then I started buying my own sets. Started buying a set every year for myself. I mean, I'm sure I could have asked for it. My dad would have got it for me, but and then somewhere along the way, I kind of got back into it. Started buying sets that my dad bought. Started buying new sets. Getting back into the hobby. So let's get into like the set itself. First of all, you'll notice it comes in a metal tin. Which I think is cool. If there's about 500 cards, give or take, in the whole set. I've looked it up. If you were going to do a tin like this in modern era, probably, with 700 cards, it'd have to be a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, but it could be done. I wish they would do it like that, or at least have like a special set where they do it. And then look at this. This is pretty cool. The inside of the tin has three slots for the cards. They keep the cards in there in a vertical base instead of like a long box like you see in the background. And another thing that came with the set that was pretty cool was this. So if you wanted to sort according to team, they included little team tags. Now, for whatever reason, two teams were missing, Astros and I forget the other one. I don't know why that is, but that's just what it is. And the other thing that I just want to point out about this set is there are actually about 7 cards missing from the total set. Once I opened this set and started looking through the set, organized the set, counted the set, looked up the set list, I found about 7 cards missing. Now, I don't know if it's just this box, and there's roughly about 15 extra cards that were doubles of cards that are already in it. I don't know if every set's that way or not, but I still got like 99% of the set in one box and one tin. So if you like the set, it looks cool to you, or maybe you were a fan at the time, and you'd like to get into it, it's about $30 to $40 online. It's not bad. You can buy a set for relatively cheap. And for me, it's worth a lot more than that. Not in terms of cards themselves, but in nostalgia, man. I mean, if I wanted to waste your time, I could go through each team, talk a little bit about the team at the time. I do want to do shows like that, but got to try to find the right balance of doing a short show that's sorry, that's entertaining but also informative. And I'll try to find a perfect balance between that. I'm not going to do that today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the rookies and talk a little bit about the inserts and call it a day. But yeah, I really like the 10. I really like the fact that they include ways to keep it organized with the set. So let's take a look at some. So you can see I've already sleeved the cards. Now these are the rookies of the set. Kareem Garcia. Now you're not going to recognize these names unless you're a fan of a lot of these names, unless you're a fan of at the time. Kareem Garcia never really became much of anything. Will Guerrero had a lot of expectation because he was the younger brother of Vlad Guerrero. Never really did much. Don't even remember this dude. Played a couple seasons. Didn't really become anything. Don't remember him. I remember before he came up, a lot of people thought he was going to be good. It wasn't. Same thing. He played for a little while, but he was expected to do more. Everybody, I remember at the time, a lot of talk that he might be the next great first baseman, but wasn't meant to be. Bobby Abreu should be a Hall of Famer, is not. One of the few rookies that was a really good player. Ray Montgomery, don't remember him. Chris Holt was at the top of the Astros rotation for a few years, was in the rotation during a particularly good time for the Astros here at the end of the 90s. But other than that, he was about a 2-3 levels, number 2 or 3 starting pitcher, and that's about it. Not it. Scott Rowland. I don't know how to describe just how much. Actually, I could come up with. Remember how everybody was so hyped before Bryce Harper became who Bryce Harper is today, and people were talking about him in the minor leagues and talking about what he could be in the majors. Scott Rowland was that guy of this era. He had success, but he never was the. He was one of those guys that had such high expectations of who he was gonna be that being a decent, solid player wasn't good enough. Here's a Hall of Famer. Rookie card. Vlad Guerrero. Great player. Great player. If you've never seen him play and you can find clips, please do so. He was a really, really good player. One of the few cards in the set of a Hall of Famer. Rookie card. I don't think it's worth that much, though. Tremaine Ellsworth probably means nothing to you, but for people who live in Pittsburgh, we had a lot of expectations of him and Jose Guillen, and they just weren't quite what we hoped for. And then out of the National League, Andrew Jones' rookie card. He played in the playoffs in '95 during the World Series run of the Braves. Played his first full season in 96. Well, actually, not first full season, but he played a little bit in 96, about 106 games. And then in 97 was his first full season. Great player, should be in the Hall of Fame, is not. But he was like that last missing piece. Was really important too, like the 90s Braves. I mean, Chipper Jones was the best offensive player. Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz held down the rotation. He kind of replaced David Justice, who would go to the Indians in free agency. He was just an integral part to those 90s Braves teams. I mean, 97, I mean, you're about well past halfway through the 90s, but that run went well into the early 2000s. He played with them for most of the run. He was just a great player. He was good defensively when he first started. Later years, he kind of added a lot of weight. It wasn't quite the same defensive player, but he started to hit a lot more power. In my opinion, he has the numbers to be a Hall of Fame player. So those are like the four guys in the National League that are hits out of this set that went on to be something beyond just a forgotten face of a bygone era. Those are the rookie cards that you want. I wanted to show you this. This came with this set. I don't know if this is a set exclusive or what, but this is different than the rest of the rookie cards that I'm going to show you. For whatever reason, this is up in the corner, official Pinnacle rookie card. I don't know why it looks different with that one stamp. Everything else looks the same, but it's got this stamp. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means it's worth more. I don't know if it was, I don't know what, but it came in the set, and I was kind of weirded out why it has a random stamp. He was a really good player for the Yankees. Jorge Posada rookie card. Also should be a Hall of Famer. Is not. Then you have a Kevin Brown, nobody, Julio Santana. He was a starting pitcher. He was okay, but that was about it. Don't really remember him too much. Jason Dixon. He was in the rotation for a couple years, but other than that, that was about it. Don't remember him at all. Scott Spiezio would go on to play for the A's for many years, go to the Yankees eventually. He was okay, but don't remember the guy. Kind of remember that he was going to be the next good Twin, and it never really happened. Royals just kind of spinning their heels at this era. They were not a good team. They were trying to find next building blocks to a team, and they just spin their tires doing so. Mike Cameron, he would go on to play in Major League Baseball for a while, but beyond being starting center fielder for a few years, after that, backup infielder, not much. Don't remember him at all. Brian Giles would eventually be traded to the Pirates. Would have some of his best seasons. But he started out in Cleveland. He had a good couple years and then just kind of faded. No, don't remember much. I remember he was during this era, Nomar Garciaparra, Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter. I mean, it was a time where a lot of people were excited about some of the. At the time, people were talking about the greatest set of shortstops in baseball history. Now, that ended up not aging too well, but at the time, he was the last one called up where people thought maybe he would join that crew. He never really did. Don't remember. And of course, Nomar Garciaparra himself. He was great for about 4 solid. I mean, he was really great. One of the best players at his position for a few years. And then injuries started to mount, and he never really was quite the player that like Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter would go on to be. Wonder if maybe he would have considered steroids. Maybe he would have been. Don't remember. So out of the American League in the set, there is, I believe, one rookie card missing. Is nobody important. These are the ones that went on to play really well or was in the majors for a long period of time. Probably out of the American League, the three best cards are probably the Rabu, Garciaparra, and Posada. Again, at one point in time, Garciaparra rookie cards would go for hundreds and hundreds of dollars, like Wander Franco cards are going now. Nowadays, since his career just really didn't pan out, they're not worth much. And that's what the set looks like. You know, the rookies have like that little stamp. Rookie. Tops at the time didn't necessarily always have a stamp to notify you that is their rookie card at the time. They do it now, but at the time, you just had to know that they were a rookie for a lot of the sets. But a lot of the other companies did have like some kind of notation that it was a rookie card. You can see it's a pretty zoomed in picture of the player, cropped down with a white border around the card with their name right at the top, and then the team down here at the bottom with the logo of the brand right here. Tops of the same year, that picture is going to be more of the card, and it's gonna look very different. But I like it. I think it's a sharp looking card. And I like the fact that a lot of the pictures are close-up shots. There's a lot of Topps cards that aren't necessarily as close up. And you'll see one of the features of this year card of score is what the backs look like. The rookie cards will have rookie on it. A little blurb about whatever's happening with the player at that time. Their stats, which I mean nowadays so old fashioned. You got home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, on base percentage, slugging percentage, and batting average. There is no OPS and all that stuff. Those numbers didn't matter as much at that time. And then you have a veteran, for instance, Shawn Estes. No, you'll see that the rookie's not there. Some more stats here in the lower corner instead of rookie. Some information over here. And then one other thing I wanted to show you about this set, which is unique in my mind, is it's not consistent. As you all know, Topps usually releases Series 1 and Series 2 and then do an update. For most years, there's a few years where they didn't do it. And in the initial set, you won't get more than one card for a player. But in sets that are not Topps, they would do something unique. For instance, some players that were traded would get a card like this, where they're in their old team's uniform, but the information says Baltimore Orioles, and when you flip it over, Orioles. But that other times, let's see, try to find, and for instance, you get somebody who was traded during the season, and then they would be in the uniform for the new team. And that you would actually have two Jose Canseco's, one in his Astros uniform and one in his new team's uniform. Why? At the time, the differences of, I can only assume that he was traded. They wanted to update the information. It was time to release the card at that time, and they just didn't have a picture of him in the new uniform, and maybe just decided to do it that way. Whereas maybe Jose Canseco got traded earlier in the season, and therefore they had more time to get him in the new uniform. And I don't know what it was, but I find this to be true of Score, and I find this to be true of Upper Deck, is that there are not update sets per se that I've found. They do the update as between Series 1 and Series 2. When they release them, they'll update the information. So you might get 2 copies of some players who moved during the season instead of just 1. Last thing about the set, just want to point this out. Showed you the rookies. Showed you what the veterans look like. Showed you what the box. These are inserts. There was a time, there was a place where inserts became the end-all be-all of the hobby, along with rookies, kind of like the modern era. Relics and autographs. And I remember a time where inserts were just not as, you chased after the sets. You chased after the base sets. There really was no too many inserts, really. But Score for this year had a Going Yard insert. Todd Hudley. I mean, these names will take you back if you watch baseball at this time. Tim Solomon, Albert Bell, Manny Ramirez, Rafael Palmeiro should be a Hall of Famer, is not. Juan Gonzalez should be a Hall of Famer, is not. Ken Griffey Jr., Andrew Jones, Jeff Bagwell, Bernie Williams should be a Hall of Famer, is not. Barry Bonds should be a Hall of Famer, is not. Ken Caminiti should be Hall of Famer, is not. Darren Ernstad, Alex Rodriguez, Frank Thomas, Chipper Jones, Mo Vaughn should be a Hall of Famer. Fred McGriff should be a Hall of Famer. Jay Bruner, Jim Thome, Gary Sheffield, Dean Palmer, and Henry Rodriguez. Now, last two weren't as well known as some of the other names in this that you saw here, but that was one insert that came in this set. Another one was these Rocket Fires, which is pretty much all pitchers. So you get an idea of who the best pitchers at the era were. On Andy Pettitte, should be a Hall of Famer. Mike Messina, Greg Maddux, John Smoltz, Hideki Rabu was Hideo Nomo was great for a couple seasons and then kind of faded. Troy Percival, John Wetland, Roger Clemens, Mariano Rivera, Tom Glavine, Randy Johnson, Jason Eisenhausen, Alex Fernandez, and Kevin Brown should be a Hall of Famer, is not. Those are the Rocket Fires. Most, as you can see, they're all pitchers. And then the other inserts in this set was the True Grits. So you have Cal Ripken Jr., Ivan Rodriguez, Rusty Greer, Tony Gwynn, Ryan Klesko, Ryan Sandberg, Barry Larkin, Will Clark should be a Hall of Famer, Kenny Lofton should be a Hall of Famer, Paul Molitor, Roberto Alomar, Ray Ordonez, Derek Jeter, and Chuck Knobloch. And then last but not least, the checklist of the sets. You get Mike Piazza. Some of them are the base sets. Some of them are for the inserts. Paul Molitor, Eddie Murray, Ken Griffey Jr. I see a double of Ken Griffey Jr. and then Frank Thomas. And you just see like the checklist on the back. 550 cards in the set. And that is 1997 score. Weird time in baseball. The Diamondbacks didn't exist yet. The Devil Rays didn't exist yet. The Washington Nationals had not come to be yet. The Expos were still a thing. The divisions were still weird. It was a good era of baseball. A lot of from looking at the sets through from the 90s to about the 2000s, a lot of and looking through like baseball reference and stuff like that, a lot of the players that would come to rise, be popular in the early 90s, would play well into, like the ones that were good would play well into the 2000s, like Ken Griffey Jr. And like it would take a while for the next generation to kind of step forward. And then after that, that's one thing that I find, like, now that I'm older, you go and you can look up stuff and not relying on half remembered things. You find out that your memory is not as sharp as you'd like to think. You misremember things, or things didn't seem to go on as long as they really did, or they didn't last nearly as long as they seemed to back then. That's what I like about looking at these sets. Looking up the stats of players, be like, whatever happened to that guy? And then, seeing what happened with the rest of his career. That's why I think if you have a little bit of money and you want to buy sets, I'd do so slowly, unlike me. But there's some sets out there that are pretty cheap to get into and have you'll get a lot more joy out of than. Now, if you're out looking just to try to flip cards for more money, I mean, a set like 97 Score is not for you. But if you just are a collector, like having different sets, maybe want to take a trip down memory lane, you get a lot of value out of sets like this. I would say I got more than my $30 out of memories and stuff like that than I paid for. So it's one of the sets. Score during this time, from my perspective, kind of got to be cool again. They're kind of made fun of for the late 80s and early 90s, where they were called junk wax. 97 and 98, in my opinion, they were better than Topps. Better card, more fun to collect. But that thing's kind of subjective, and the fact that they're no longer a company in the same way is frustrating. I mean, I know they publish licensed football, but the fact that Topps is the only company that can release licensed baseball stuff is goofy. I understand. Early 2000s, it got out of hand. A lot of companies were all releasing licensed stuff, and a lot of people got kind of confused as to what to buy and stuff like that. But having only one choice isn't the solution either. And going forward with the Fanatics deal, where Fanatics owns football, baseball, and basketball, and will be the only ones releasing licensed products. The thought of Topps not producing licensed baseball product for a guy who was raised on Topps, it's upsetting, a little upsetting. But this is 97 Score. Just wanted to share with you what sets look like. Talk a little bit about baseball. I'm going to confess to you that when we open sets, there are certain sets that are going to have more of a nostalgia feel for me than others. This is one of those sets that I have a memory attached to it. I remember the era well. There's other sets that I'm not going to remember as well. And I really want to try to share with you more information, go through more of the cards, and talk more about baseball. But you let me know which would you rather? Do you just want the bare facts of the set? What the cards look like from that set? What are some of the cards that could potentially have the most value, or do you want more baseball information? I would like to do a little bit of both. Have it be more about baseball, with a little bit of card collecting mixed in. But you let me know. Just leave comments. Please subscribe. We're going to do this more often. So, that in mind, I just want to show you in the background. I bought 2012, 2011, and 2010 factory sets recently. It's dropped about $200. We'll be opening those. I'm not gonna open them before. We'll open them live on camera, and we'll go through those sets together. But we'll probably do other sets too that I've already opened. That I'll try to figure out whether I'm going to go through the rookies and stuff like that first, and make like a short video with that, and then make a longer video. I don't know. I got some thinking to do about how I want to do it. But thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more baseball collecting entertainment.